It was a cool, misty evening in the small town of Ashwood, where the air carried a faint scent of pine and mystery. Jane, a high school senior with a love for books and solitude, received an unexpected invitation to a birthday party. The card, elegant and old-fashioned, was slipped under her front door. "Join us to celebrate. Saturday, June 21st, 8 p.m., at the old Mason Manor." Jane was puzzled. She didn't know anyone who lived in Mason Manor, an abandoned mansion rumored to be haunted. Curiosity piqued, she decided to attend. After all, she had just turned 18 and wanted to step out of her comfort zone. The night of the party was unusually dark. Jane drove her small, beat-up car to the edge of town, where Mason Manor loomed ominously against the night sky. The house, with its broken windows and overgrown yard, was an eerie sight. As she approached, she noticed a few other cars parked haphazardly. It seemed she wasn't the only guest. Inside, the house was surprisingly well lit and decorated for a party, complete with balloons, streamers, and a table laden with food. Jane recognized a few classmates but was surprised to see that the majority of the guests were strangers. "Happy birthday, Jane!" A chorus of voices greeted her as she stepped inside, startling her. A girl with bright red hair, who Jane vaguely recognized from school, handed her a glass of punch. "Thanks, but whose birthday is it?" Jane asked. The girl grinned. "It's your birthday, silly. We're here to celebrate you." Jane was bewildered. "But my birthday was last week." The girl shrugged. "Guess someone wanted to throw you a surprise party." Jane mingled with the guests, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. Everyone seemed genuinely happy to be there, and the atmosphere was festive. However, as the night wore on, strange things began to happen. The lights flickered, and shadows seemed to move on their own. Jane overheard snippets of conversation that made her skin crawl. "Did you hear about the girl who disappeared here years ago?" "Yeah, they say her spirit still haunts the place." Jane decided to investigate. She slipped away from the party and wandered through the dark, dusty halls of the mansion. The further she ventured, the colder it became. She found herself drawn to a room at the end of a long corridor. The door creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit space filled with old furniture covered in white sheets. In the center of the room was a large, antique mirror. As Jane approached, she felt a chill run down her spine. Her reflection seemed different, almost older and sadder. She reached out to touch the glass, and the room suddenly grew cold. The mirror fogged up, and words began to appear, "Help me." Jane gasped and stumbled back. She knew she had to find out what happened in this house. Determined, she left the room and continued her exploration. She found a hidden staircase leading to the basement. The air grew musty and damp as she descended. The basement was a maze of old furniture and forgotten relics. In the far corner, Jane discovered an old trunk. She pried it open and found a stack of yellowed newspapers. The headline on the top one made her heart stop: "Local girl disappears on 18th birthday, last seen at Mason Manor." Jane's mind raced. She realized the date on the paper was exactly 20 years ago. As she sifted through the papers, she found an old diary. It belonged to a girl named Emily, who had disappeared on her 18th birthday. The last entry was chilling. "I'm scared. There's something in this house. I can feel it watching me. If anyone finds this, please tell my story." Jane heard footsteps approaching and quickly hid the diary in her bag. She turned to see the red-haired girl from the party standing at the top of the stairs. "What are you doing down here?" the girl asked, her voice unnaturally cold. "I was just exploring," Jane replied, trying to sound casual. The girl's eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't be here." Suddenly, the lights went out, and Jane felt a cold hand grip her arm. She screamed and tried to pull away, but the grip tightened. A ghostly figure appeared in the dim light, its eyes hollow and full of sorrow. "You have to leave," the figure whispered. "This place is cursed." Jane managed to break free and ran up the stairs, her heart pounding. She burst into the party, shouting for everyone to leave. The guests looked at her in confusion and fear. "We have to get out of here. This house is haunted," she screamed. Chaos erupted as people scrambled for the exits. Jane led the charge, urging everyone to move faster. As they reached the front door, it slammed shut, trapping them inside. The room grew dark, and the temperature dropped. Shadows danced on the walls, and eerie whispers filled the air. Jane realized she had to confront whatever was haunting the house. She grabbed a candle from a nearby table and headed back to the basement, where she felt the presence was strongest. The red-haired girl followed her, looking more frightened than ever. Together, they descended into the darkness. Jane held up the candle, its flickering light casting eerie shadows on the walls. They reached the trunk where Jane had found the diary. The ghostly figure appeared again, this time looking more solid and real. "Please, help me," the ghost said. "I can't find peace until my story is told." Jane nodded. "I found your diary, Emily. I'll make sure everyone knows what happened to you." The ghost smiled, a look of relief washing over her face. The room grew warmer, and the oppressive feeling began to lift. Jane and the red-haired girl emerged from the basement, carrying the diary. The guests had gathered in the main hall, looking anxious and scared. Jane stood before them and read aloud Emily's final entry. As she finished, the room grew silent. The front door creaked open, and a cool breeze swept through the house. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the shadows seemed to retreat. The ghostly presence was gone. The party guests slowly dispersed, grateful to leave the haunted mansion behind. Jane stayed behind with the red-haired girl, who introduced herself as Sarah. "Thank you for helping me," Sarah said. "I think Emily can finally rest in peace now." Jane nodded. "I think so too." They left Mason Manor together, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon. Jane felt a sense of closure and a newfound determination to live her life to the fullest. Years later, Jane published a book about her experience, ensuring Emily's story was never forgotten. The mansion was eventually restored and turned into a museum, a testament to the town's history and the resilience of the human spirit. And every year on her birthday, Jane visited Mason Manor to pay her respects to Emily, the girl who had been forgotten but never truly lost. Sam had always been a fan of horror stories, but he never expected to be the protagonist of one. As his 30th birthday approached, he planned a small gathering with his closest friends at his family's old, creaky lake house. It was the perfect setting for an unforgettable night. Unbeknownst to him, it was going to be more unforgettable than he could ever imagine. The arrival. Sam's friends began arriving in the late afternoon. The sun cast long shadows over the serene lake, and the air was filled with the scent of pine trees and fresh water. The group consisted of Sam's childhood friends, Mark, the jokester, Lisa, the skeptic, Tom, the storyteller, and Emily, Sam's girlfriend, who had a knack for sensing when things were amiss. As the group settled in, they couldn't help but notice how isolated the lake house felt. It had been in Sam's family for generations, but none of them had visited in years. The house itself was a two-story, weather-beaten structure with large windows overlooking the lake. The interior was a mix of old furniture and faded photographs, giving it a nostalgic yet eerie atmosphere. The storm. As evening fell, dark clouds gathered overhead. A storm was brewing, and the wind began to howl through the trees. Sam and his friends decided to make the most of the situation by lighting a fire in the old stone fireplace and sharing ghost stories. Tom, the best storyteller of the group, started with a local legend. Many years ago, a young woman named Eliza lived in a cabin on the far side of this lake, Tom began, his voice low and dramatic. She was known for her beauty and kindness, but one night, she vanished without a trace. Some say she drowned in the lake, others believe she was taken by something unnatural. On stormy nights like this, it's said that Eliza's spirit roams the lake, searching for those who wander too close to the water. A sudden crack of thunder made everyone jump. Emily, sitting closest to the window, thought she saw a shadow moving near the water's edge, but when she looked again, there was nothing there. She shrugged it off, blaming her imagination. The invitation. As the night wore on, the storm intensified. Lightning illuminated the sky, and the rain beat against the windows. The group decided to play a game of truth or dare to lighten the mood. When it was Mark's turn, he dared Sam to retrieve an old, dusty Ouija board from the attic. Sam hesitated. "I don't know, guys. My grandparents used to say that thing was trouble." "Oh, come on, Sam," Lisa teased. "Are you scared?" Feeling the pressure, Sam reluctantly agreed. He climbed the narrow stairs to the attic, where he found the Ouija board tucked away in a corner. As he picked it up, a chill ran down his spine, but he brushed it off and returned to the group. They set up the board in the living room, candles flickering around them. "Is anyone there?" Lisa asked, her fingers lightly touching the planchette. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the planchette began to move. "Why, yes." Everyone exchanged nervous glances. "Who are you?" Tom asked. The planchette moved again. "Eliza." Emily's face went pale. "This isn't funny, guys." "It's not us," Mark said, his voice trembling. "Let's stop." But the planchette continued to move on its own. LAV. The intrusion. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the house into darkness. The storm outside raged on, and the group scrambled to find flashlights and candles. Emily clung to Sam, her intuition screaming that something was very wrong. "Maybe we should leave," she whispered. "We can't go out in this storm," Sam replied, trying to sound brave. "Let's just stay together and wait it out." They huddled in the living room, trying to ignore the creaks and groans of the old house. But then, they heard a distinct sound, footsteps coming from the attic. The group froze, their eyes wide with fear. "Someone's up there," Lisa whispered. "Impossible," Tom said. "We're the only ones here." The footsteps grew louder, descending the stairs. Mark grabbed a fireplace poker, ready to defend his friends. The door to the attic creaked open, and in the dim light, they saw a figure standing at the top of the stairs. It was a woman, drenched from the rain, her hair matted and her eyes hollow. "Who are you?" Sam demanded, his voice shaking. The woman stepped forward, and they could see her face more clearly. It was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were filled with sorrow. "Eliza," she whispered. Emily stepped forward, sensing a connection. "Why are you here?" she asked gently. Eliza's gaze shifted to Emily, her expression softening. "I was taken," she said, her voice barely audible, "by something that lives in the lake. It feeds on fear, and it trapped me here. I can't leave. How can we help you?" Sam asked, his fear turning to determination. Eliza looked at the Ouija board. "You summoned me. Now, you must set me free. Find the locket in the attic. It holds the key to breaking the curse." Without hesitation, the group rushed to the attic. They searched through boxes and old trunks until they found a small, ornate locket. Inside was a faded photograph of Eliza and a note that read, "Return me to the water, and I will be free." The confrontation. With the locket in hand, they made their way to the lake, the storm still raging around them. As they approached the water's edge, the wind howled louder, and the waves crashed violently against the shore. "Are you sure about this?" Mark asked, his voice barely audible over the storm. "We have to try," Sam replied. He stepped forward and tossed the locket into the lake. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the water began to glow with an eerie light. A figure emerged from the depths, a monstrous creature with eyes like black voids and a gaping mouth filled with sharp teeth. It was the thing that had taken Eliza. "You dare defy me," the creature roared, its voice echoing across the lake. Sam stood his ground, his friends behind him. "Let her go," he demanded. The creature lunged at them, but as it did, the glow from the locket intensified, and the monster recoiled in pain. Eliza's spirit appeared beside them, her form becoming more solid as the light grew brighter. "Thank you," she whispered. "Your courage has freed me." With a final burst of light, the creature was banished back into the depths of the lake, and the storm began to subside. Eliza smiled at them one last time before fading away, finally at peace. The aftermath. The next morning, the sun rose over a calm and serene lake. The house, once filled with fear and darkness, now felt warm and inviting. Sam and his friends packed their things, ready to leave this place behind. As they drove away, Emily turned to Sam. "Do you think she's really gone?" "I think so," Sam replied. "But I don't think we'll ever forget her." Years later, Sam would look back on his 30th birthday as the night he faced true terror and discovered the power of friendship and bravery. The lake house remained a place of mystery, but it was no longer haunted by fear. Instead, it stood as a testament to the strength of those who dared to face the unknown and emerge victorious.